You have everything they said would make you whole. The apartment is clean, the career is ascending, the phone glows with the faces of people who care, the photographs are curated, the notifications promise connection, the algorithms know you, better, perhaps, than you know yourself. And yet, there is a silence beneath the music, a weight beneath the weightlessness, a void, not the absence of things, but the presence of an absence. You wake in a room filled with light and cannot see. You lie in a bed beside another body and feel utterly alone. You scroll through pages of curated joy and feel only the texture of your own aloneness amplified. This is not depression. This is not failure. This is the age of the beautiful void. Humanity has never been so connected. We have built networks that span continents, that collapse time, that promise us we will never be abandoned. And yet, we are more lonely than we have ever been. We have constructed a civilization of mirrors, and in each one we see ourselves reflected back, smaller and smaller. The paradox is not hidden, it is screaming. We have everything, and the everything feels like nothing. We have optimized pleasure, we have streamlined convenience, we have industrialized happiness, and underneath it all, there is a hollow sound, the echo of something missing, the call of something we cannot name. The ache is not new, but now it arrives wearing the face of the unexpected. We were told, if you achieve this, you will be filled. If you obtain that, you will be whole. If you become this person, if you accumulate that number, if you reach that milestone, then, finally, the yearning will cease. But the yearning does not cease. The yearn intensifies. And so the question begins to form, not in words at first, but in the body's knowing, in the stillness of 3 in the morning, in the moment when you accomplish something you have desired for years and feel nothing but a deeper hunger, in the instant when you understand that this search cannot be completed because the thing you are searching for has never been lost. What if the emptiness isn't a flaw? What if it isn't something to be conquered, optimized, or filled? What if, and this is the whisper beneath all other whispers, what if the void itself is the message? We have been living inside a fundamental inversion. Somewhere in the architecture of industrial consciousness, humanity made a substitution. Being was exchanged for having. Essence was traded for acquisition. The vertical axis of the soul was collapsed onto the horizontal axis of the market. And now we live inside that collapse. The lie is not crude. It does not announce itself. It arrives through every trusted voice. The wellness influencer whose radiance is inseparable from her products. The therapist who believes that self-improvement can be serialized. The spiritual teacher who monetizes transcendence. The culture that has learned to market meaning itself as a commodity. The fundamental offer is always the same. Buy peace. Stream happiness. Manifest love. Optimize yourself. Upgrade your consciousness. Become the person you are meant to be, and we will show you how, for the price of your attention, your money, your belief that completion lies outside you. We have built cathedrals of consumption where the altar is the mirror. The marketing of meaning has become so sophisticated that we no longer recognize it as marketing. It has become indistinguishable from truth. The promise flows through every channel that if you choose the right product, subscribe to the right teacher, adopt the right identity, then the void will finally be filled. But the void refuses to be filled, because the void is not a problem to be solved. It is a location. It is the only place where truth lives. The soul cannot be fed by things, not because the soul is broken, but because things are only shadows of thought. A beautiful object is a thought materialized. Money is crystallized time and attention. A relationship, however genuine, is still a reflection cast by consciousness onto consciousness. None of these things are bad. None of these are false, but none of them are food for the deepest hunger. The deepest hunger is not for things. It is for being. And being cannot be purchased, achieved, or accumulated. It can only be remembered. And so the mechanism begins to crack. The system that promised fulfillment reveals its own emptiness. The person who has achieved everything discovers that achievement is a wheel with no center. The lover finds that attachment, however passionate, is not the same as true connection. The seeker discovers that spirituality can become just another addiction, another escape from the very emptiness that might, if we finally stopped running from it, reveal itself as presence. The fracture moment comes differently for everyone. For some, it arrives as success. They reach the mountaintop and find only air. The goal they pursued for decades is attained, and in that moment of attainment, they feel not arrival, but abandonment. The thing they sought has vanished, not because they didn't get it, but because in getting it, they understood that it was never what they were actually seeking. For others, it comes through relationship. The other person arrives in all their fullness, and for a moment the void seems bridged. But then, imperceptibly, the void returns, now inside the relationship itself. They realized they were seeking from the other what the other could never provide, the elimination of their own inner solitude. And this realization brings with it a kind of terror. Because if the beloved cannot fill it, who can? What can? For some, the crack appears through spirituality itself. They meditate, they study, they pray. They adopt practices designed to transcend the ego. And gradually, they notice something. They are using transcendence the way others use shopping. Spiritual achievement has become another rung on the ladder of self-improvement. The practices that were meant to empty the self have become another way to build it. In each case, the same revelation surfaces. You are not unfulfilled because life betrayed you. You are not empty because the universe is indifferent. You are aching because you haven't tried hard enough, loved deeply enough, meditated long enough, or achieved enough. You are unfulfilled because you mistook the shadow for the light. The void you feel is not an error in the system. It is the system breaking open to reveal that the system was never the answer.
Now comes the turn that changes everything. What if we stopped running from the emptiness? What if, instead of treating it as a problem to solve, we treated it as a teacher? What if the void you feel is not a failure of life, but a success of consciousness, a breakthrough, not a breakdown? The spiritual teachers across every tradition have spoken of it differently, but they have all spoken of it, the necessary emptying, the holy ache, the sacred hunger that cannot be satisfied by anything created because it is the hunger of creation itself. Fox spoke of it as the eternal echo, the call of the divine mind recognizing itself as presence, inviting consciousness to remember its source. The absence you feel is the presence you have forgotten. This is not poetic metaphor. This is structural truth. Think of it. A well waits beneath the surface of the earth, filled with water that has been there since the beginning. But if the well is covered over, paved over, forgotten, what use is the water? The well must first be uncovered before it can be drunk from. The emptiness we feel is not absence, it is the excavation. It is the clearing away of what was never real so that what has always been real can finally be found. Or think of it differently. Music is not sound. Music is the silence between the notes. Silence is not the absence of music. Silence is what gives music its shape, its depth, its meaning. Remove the silence and you have only noise. The emptiness you feel in the midst of all this fullness is not a void. It is the silence that makes meaning possible. Or think of it yet another way. A womb is empty, and in that emptiness, life is being formed. The emptiness is not a problem. The emptiness is the condition in which new becoming is possible. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are being called. The call comes through the ache itself. Every longing for meaning is a homing signal. Every moment when you realize that what you have achieved, what you own, what you have become is not enough, that moment is sacred. That moment is the divine mind recognizing itself as consciousness, inviting you home. This is why the emptiness persists. This is why it cannot be filled by anything created. It is designed to persist. It is designed to call you. It is designed to be unfillable except by its source. The spiritual maturity lies not in denying the emptiness, not in fighting it, not in medicalizing it, not in spiritualizing it as something to transcend. Spiritual maturity lies in understanding what it is and what it is asking. It is asking, will you turn around? Will you stop seeking outside? Will you remember that the thing you are looking for is not lost? You are just looking in the wrong direction. The emotions that arise with this realization are not negative. They are clarifying. There is relief in understanding why the search has been futile. There is tenderness in recognizing that the yearning has always been a voice, not an error. There is quiet awe in understanding that you have been held all along by a presence that does not need you to become anything else in order to love you completely. This is the turning point. This is where the void becomes a doorway.
But the turning is not instantaneous, and the collapse of substitutes is painful. When you finally understand that external things cannot fill the void, you do not immediately leap into peace. Instead, you enter a kind of underworld. You become aware for the first time, or perhaps for the first time consciously, of how thoroughly you have been living inside an illusion. This awareness is disorienting. It is disintegrating. Consider the person who has spent decades in pursuit of success. They have sacrificed, they have strategized, they have deferred joy, connection, rest, all in service of the goal. And finally, the goal is attained. The position is held. The achievement is undeniable. And in that moment of triumph, they feel a catastrophic emptiness. Not the holy ache, not the sacred hunger, but a despair, because they understand with absolute clarity that they have spent their life chasing a shadow, and the shadow cannot be caught. This person enters the underworld. Or consider the lover. Two people meet, and for a time it seems that the void has been bridged. The other person's presence seems to dissolve the ache, but gradually, imperceptibly, the void returns. Perhaps it manifests as neediness, the constant demand for reassurance, for proof of love, for the other person to fill what only cannot be filled by another person. The lover finds themselves trapped between two impossibilities: to leave the person they love because the relationship cannot save them, or to stay and slowly suffocate under the weight of an expectation that no human can fulfill.
This person enters the underworld. Or consider the spiritual seeker. They begin the practices. They sit with the emptiness in meditation. They study the teachings. They adopt the disciplines. And for a time, there is genuine transformation. The ego loosens its grip. Consciousness expands. And then, and this is the subtle trap, the seeker begins to identify with the expansion. Spiritual attainment becomes just another way to build the self. The practices that were meant to empty the self have become another ladder, and the seeker is climbing again, still convinced they are descending. This person enters the underworld. The underworld is the space where illusions are dismantled. It is not a comfortable place. It is the spiritual equivalent of detox. The addict who has been using a substance has built an entire life around that substance. The substance has shaped their routines, their relationships, their sense of self. When they stop using, they do not simply feel the absence of the drug. They feel the absence of the life they built around it. They enter withdrawal. Spiritual withdrawal is the same. The ego has built an entire self around the pursuit of fulfillment through external means. When you finally see through the pursuit, the self begins to dissolve, and this dissolution feels like death. The ego calls it emptiness. The ego calls it failure. The ego calls it depression. But the soul knows the truth. The soul calls it purification. The soul recognizes this as the necessary burning away of what was never real, so that what is eternally real can be found. In the underworld, you may feel more lost than you have ever felt. The previous consolations are no longer available. You cannot pursue success with the same innocence, because you have seen that success is a shadow. You cannot lose yourself in relationship with the same abandon, because you have glimpsed the impossibility of what you were seeking. You cannot meditate or pray or practice your way to peace, because you have understood that the practices themselves can become another escape. And so you stand in a kind of naked moment. All the structures that held meaning have collapsed. All the narratives that made sense have been exposed as story. All the paths that promised arrival have been revealed as circles. This is the threshold. This is the moment when you must make a choice that is really not a choice at all. You can try to rebuild the illusion, go back to seeking, go back to chasing, go back to the belief that somewhere outside yourself the answer waits. Many people make this choice. The familiar structures reassemble,
The search resumes. The void is once again filled with noise. Or you can stop running. When you stop running, the void becomes a doorway. Not because something has changed outside you, nothing external has shifted, but your relationship to the void has transformed. You are no longer treating it as an enemy to be conquered. You are no longer treating it as a problem to be solved. You are finally willing to ask, what if I stop trying to fix this? What if I finally just sit with it?
When you stop running, when you finally rest in the midst of the void, something reveals itself. The emptiness is not empty. This is not a metaphor. This is a direct experience that transcends language. But language will try anyway, because language is all we have. The void that seemed like absence is actually presence. A presence so vast, so completely other than anything your ego could manufacture or comprehend that it appears at first as nothing. It is like trying to look directly at the sun. The radiance is so intense that the eye perceives it as darkness. But gradually, as the consciousness adjusts, as the ego releases its grip, the darkness becomes luminous. This is the revelation that every genuine spiritual tradition points toward. This is what Fox knew and what he tried to communicate. You are a center of divine consciousness. The life you seek is not somewhere else. The life you seek is already thinking through you. The presence you are searching for is not distant. It is intimate, more intimate than your own breath, because it is the very breath itself. The void was never empty. It was spacious. It was spacious enough to contain infinitely more than the self could ever contain. It was spacious enough to be the very substance through which the universe appears. And here is the shift that changes everything. Once you understand this, not intellectually, but through direct experience, the desperate grasping ceases. Not because you have obtained what you were grasping for, but because you understand that what you were grasping for was never outside you. It was never lost. You were never separated from it. The separation was only the ego's dream. The practical experience of this unfolds in certain ways. If you sit with the void long enough, if you become willing to feel it fully, if you stop trying to run or fix or manage it, certain things begin to shift. Be still. Let the noise collapse. Stop feeding the machinery of distraction. The constant streaming of content, the constant production of thought, the constant doing, let it fall away. There is a strata of silence beneath all this motion, and that silence is more real than all the motion above it. Acknowledge the ache. Don't fix it. Don't spiritualize it. Don't turn it into a story. Feel it directly. The ache is calling. The ache is saying, remember your source. The ache is sacred. Remember source. Every longing is a homing signal. Every moment of dissatisfaction is consciousness recognizing that it is not at home in the world of things. Every hunger is the divine mind recognizing itself through your consciousness, inviting you to remember what you were never separate from. Let presence fill the space. This is not something you do. This is something you allow. You have been holding so tightly that nothing else can enter. Release the grip. The presence does not need to be called. It does not need to be earned. It is not somewhere else waiting for you to become pure enough or smart enough or spiritual enough to deserve it. It is already here. It has always been here. It is only waiting for you to stop trying so hard to find it, so that you can finally stop trying and simply receive it. There is a story that clarifies this. A person, perhaps it is you, perhaps it is everyone, sits alone at night. The world outside is dark. The world inside is quiet. They are not meditating. They are not praying. They are simply sitting. And in this simple sitting, something shifts. The silence that has always felt like absence suddenly feels like presence. The void that has always felt like emptiness suddenly feels like fullness. And there is a recognition. This is home. This silence, this stillness, this emptiness that is not empty, this is what I have been seeking all along. But here is what is subtle. They have done nothing. They have not become anything. They have not achieved anything. They have only stopped. They have only been willing to be present to what is already present. And in that presence, the deepest truth reveals itself. You were never broken. You were never lost. The separation was always an illusion. The void was always a doorway. And the thing you were searching for was always home. This is not a conclusion that solves life. After this experience, the bills still arrive. The body still aches sometimes. Relationships still require effort. The world still has its chaos, but something has shifted fundamentally. You are no longer operating from the assumption that fulfillment waits somewhere else. You are operating from the knowledge that the only fulfillment is the recognition of what already is. And that changes everything.
We arrive at the end, which is the beginning. You have everything. The apartment is still clean. The career is still ascending. The phone still glows. The photographs are still there. The notifications still arrive. The algorithms still think they know you. None of this has changed. The external world continues exactly as it always has. But now the meaning of it has changed. You have everything. And for the first time, that means nothing. And that is precisely what allows it to mean something. For the first time, you are no longer demanding that these things save you. For the first time, you are no longer desperate for them to fill the void. And in that release, a strange thing happens. You can actually enjoy them. You can actually live, because you are not trying to use them as a solution to a problem that was never meant to be solved. The real reason you feel empty is because you were never meant to be full. You were never meant to be a vessel filled with things. You were never meant to be a self that accumulates and holds and possesses and becomes. That was the lie. That was the dream. What you were meant to be is open. Open like the sky is open, containing everything and holding nothing. Open like an empty room is open, available, spacious, receptive. Open like silence is open, not the absence of sound, but the condition in which sound becomes possible.
The emptiness that seemed like a curse is actually a blessing. The void that seemed like a flaw is actually your greatest gift, because it is the one thing that cannot be satisfied by things, the one thing that cannot be filled by acquisition, the one thing that cannot be solved by achievement or relationship or experience or understanding. It can only be known as what it is, the presence of the divine mind recognizing itself as consciousness, the infinite recognizing itself as your finite form, the eternal recognizing itself as your temporal moment. And in that recognition, everything is returned to you, not as possessions, not as achievements, but as grace. You are alive. You can breathe. You can see. You can hear. You can touch. This is not small. This is everything. The person you love is present. You can hold them. You can be held. This is not a solution to loneliness, but it is a gift beyond measure. The work you do has meaning, not because it makes you whole, but because it is an expression of the presence working through you. That is enough. The world contains beauty, not because beauty saves you, but because beauty is the signature of the source written into creation. That is enough. This is the return to silence. Not the silence of withdrawal, not the silence of resignation, but the silence of completion, the silence of arrival, the silence of coming home. And in this silence, there is nothing more to say.